Everyone told you avoidants do not feel it when you leave, that they move on fast, feel nothing, replace you before you even had time to process what happened. And after hearing that enough times, most people believe it. They stop looking for answers. They convince themselves the avoidant never actually cared and try to move forward. But what if that story is completely wrong? Because I am an avoidant, and I am going to tell you exactly what happens inside us the moment we realize we have lost you. And I promise you, it is nothing like what you've been told. To understand that moment, you first have to understand how an avoidant nervous system actually works. Because without this, nothing else makes sense. Avoidants do not seem unbothered after losing someone because they did not care. Research on adult attachment is very clear about this. They seem unbothered because their nervous system was trained very early in life to suppress emotional responses before they ever reach the surface. Not out of cruelty, not out of coldness, but out of survival. At some point, usually in childhood, expressing pain or need did not bring comfort. It brought pressure, discomfort, or silence. So the brain made a very logical decision. It learned to convert grief into distance. It learned that staying numb was safer than admitting something actually hurt. And that system has been running on autopilot ever since. Quietly, automatically. So when a relationship ends, the walls go up, the routine continues. And from the outside, it looks like indifference. But it is not indifference. It is a defense mechanism that has spent years being reinforced. And every defense mechanism, no matter how strong, has a breaking point. Most people assume the avoidant feels the loss the moment the relationship ends. They imagine some quiet wave of regret hitting right after the breakup. Maybe a little sadness that fades quickly and confirms everything they already believed. And they are almost always wrong. The avoidant does not feel it at the end. In fact, their nervous system is most offended at the exact moment of separation. The walls are at their absolute highest. The suppression is running at full strength. What they feel right then is not grief. It is relief. And that relief is real. It is not performed. But it is also temporary. And underneath it is something much larger, something the defense system is working very hard to keep buried. The crack does not come from the breakup itself. It comes from the silence on the other side of it. Not immediately, but somewhere in the stretch of days and weeks after you stop reaching out, after you stop checking in, after your presence, which they had quietly counted on even while pushing it away, simply stops being there. That absence does not arrive all at once. It shows up in small, completely ordinary moments. When something happens and their first instinct is to tell you, and then they remember they cannot. When they hear a song or pass a place or have the kind of day that would have naturally become a story between the two of you, and there is nowhere left for that story to go. When they reach the comfort of knowing you are available, even if they were not using that availability, and find nothing there instead, the avoidant does not fall apart in these moments. They do not pick up the phone. But inside, something is beginning to shift. The nervous system that spent so long defending against closeness is starting to notice, quietly and uncomfortably, what that closeness was actually providing. And that noticing is the beginning of the real grief. The grief that the defense system was built specifically to prevent. The moment it becomes fully undeniable is almost always the same. It is not seeing you with someone else, though that can accelerate what is already in motion. It is not hearing through mutual friends that you have moved on. It is quieter than either of those things, and significantly heavier. It is the moment the avoidant realizes you are genuinely gone. Not gone as in the relationship ended. Gone as in you stop being available. You stop holding space for them. You stop making it easy for them to return when they finally felt ready. And the person they always assumed would be there, the one they felt so certain that they never once stopped to examine that certainty, is simply not there anymore. That is the moment. And for an avoidant, it lands unlike anything else they have ever experienced inside a relationship, because it is not just grief over losing you as a person. It is the first time their nervous system is forced to fully confront what their own defense patterns actually cost them. Every time they pulled back, every time they chose distance over vulnerability, every time they told themselves they just needed space, and you would understand, they were carrying a quiet story underneath all of it, that they were protecting themselves, that the distance was necessary, that you would still be there when they felt ready to close the gap. And in that one moment, without any warning, every single version of that story collapses at the same time. What they feel is not clean sadness. It is not simple longing. It is a specific, suffocating weight of understanding that the very mechanism they built to keep themselves safe was the exact thing that destroyed something real. And here is what that realization almost always produces next. Not a transformation, not immediate clarity or sudden readiness to do things differently. It produces reactivation. They reach out, they resurface, they send a message or make the call, and it can feel meaningful from the outside, like something finally shifted. But in most cases, they are not reaching out because they have done the work. They are reaching out because the loss finally broke through something the defenses could not contain. And reconnecting feels like the fastest way to make the unbearable feeling stop. This is the part that matters most if you are on the receiving end of that reactivation. The avoidant feeling the loss is not the same as the avoidant being ready to show up differently. Those are two completely separate events, and they do not always happen together. Someone can genuinely miss you, genuinely feel the grief of losing you, and still not have touched the patterns that kept creating the distance in the first place. Grief without growth is still just grief. The real question worth sitting with is not whether they felt it when you left. It is what they did with that feeling once it arrived. Did they reach out immediately, looking for your presence to dissolve the discomfort? Or did they stay inside the feeling long enough to actually understand where it came from? That answer tells you more about where they truly are than anything they could say to you directly. And if you have been the one waiting and wondering whether any of it was ever real, I want you to know something important. It was real. The avoidant who seemed not to care was not someone without feeling. They were someone whose feelings were buried so deep inside their own architecture that it took losing you completely to finally locate them. None of that makes the pattern acceptable, but it does make it human. These defenses were not chosen. They were built in environments where they made complete sense at the time. And anything built under those conditions can, with enough honesty and the right support, be understood and slowly rebuilt. Now I want to hear from you. Have you experienced this? Did an avoidant come back after you finally walked away? Or are you the avoidant watching this and feeling something shift in how you see your own patterns? Drop it in the comments. What you share might be exactly what someone else needed to read today. And if this gave you something real, subscribe. Because next week, we are going into what happens after that moment of realization. Whether avoidants actually change once they feel the loss. What separates the ones who grow from the ones who simply cycle back into the same patterns. And what it means for you if they reach out. That is a video you will not want to miss.